All right, everyone, we are going to do a quick demo on how to do a simple three-dimensional room with floating objects. This is probably the simplest version of this project. So for those of you that are feeling a little intimidated, you might want to go with this route. Certainly this isn't the only way you can do it, but this is one way. Now, I'm not going to use a ruler. I'm just going to freehand it for right now. But when you do this at home, try freehanding it. And then on your final piece, you would use a ruler. So first, I'm going to start out with creating a frame. And again, you would do this with your ruler, making sure the border is all the same all the way around. And then from there, we'll start figuring out what kind of shapes we want to have floating in the room. So I want to have one 4-point orb I'm going to put right there. I'm going to put a cube over here. And of course, these are going to start out as shapes. I'll do a cylinder over here, and you'll see how that becomes a cylinder in a minute. And this will be a prism, okay? Now, I'm putting the shapes first because I don't want to have to worry about having to erase lines later, and that will make sense. So right now, this is the outside edge of my room, and I'm going to do the back wall now. So I'm going to create a back wall behind these shapes. So I'm just going to go through them like this. All right, now those are going to be my shapes. Now the next thing I need to have is my vanishing point, and I'm going to put that in the middle, but you can put it anywhere as long as it's anywhere within that, that rectangle. From here, now we start bringing everything to that line. I'm going to start by having my outer edge. I'm just going to make these straight squares. And I think you remember in class where I showed you how the edges were folding over, how it looked like the edges were folding over. And that's what this is going to end up looking like. So right now I'm just creating that outer edge, sort of the frame. And again, I'm not making this perfect, but if you were to do this at home, you'd want to measure this out and make sure each of these lines are equidistant apart. Okay, like so. Now I'm going to use my ruler. Now, I like using a clear ruler because I can see through to what's going on underneath. So if you have a clear ruler, use one of those. If not, a regular ruler will be fine. So once you've measured these lines out and they're equidistant, you'll now start taking these points to the vanishing point. So for every place where these lines intersect, I'm going to take it to the vanishing point. So I'm going to start in the corner. Well, actually, I'm not going to take it to the vanishing point. I'm going to take it to the edge of the room because this is the back wall, and that will make sense in a minute when I'm done. And again, if I run into a shape, I want to stop. So here, I run into my shape, so I stop. Oops, I made a mistake. Hang on, I gotta bring that to the vanishing point. And I take this one to the vanishing point, and so on. And I just keep going all the way around until they all hit the vanishing point. Again, stopping when I run into my objects. Make sure that you're touching that vanishing point with your ruler. So I think you can see where this is going at this point. So I'm not going to do all of these just for the sake of time and the video not lasting forever. But you can see how now it looks like these lines are kind of folding in. All right, so let's talk about making these these shapes into forms. So I'm going to do the same thing I did here. I'm going to go to the edge of my circle, and I'm going to do a line going from the edge of the circle to the vanishing point, just as far as I want to make that cylinder deep. So if I want to make it really deep, I can make my line longer. Again, I'm going to do the same thing over here, lining it up with the edge of the circle. And then this back line is just going to mimic this front line. So now I have this cylinder shooting back in space. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my prism. And again, depending on how deep, it's going to tell me how long I want to make these lines. Now here I went through, so I'm going to need to erase that line because I don't want to see the background. And then here, and then just like the cylinder, I'm going to mimic the same shape here and here. And then I can erase those orthogonal lines because I don't need them anymore. That's what we call those lines that go to the vanishing point, are called orthogonal lines. And now I have a prism. Now my cube is here. Same thing with the cube. I'm going to take from the corners to the vanishing point. How deep I want, I'm going to make it longer, and I can always make it less deep depending on how I cut it off. Okay, so I'm going to erase that. And now again, I'm going to just mimic this same shape here, back here, and erase the orthogonal lines. And you see why you want to use a pencil and draw lightly, because you will be doing a good bit of erasing. All right, so those are the forms. Now, the last step is the 4-point orb, and this is the one that's the fun one, and this is the one that you have to include on your composition. I want everyone to have at least one 4-point orb. Now, the way this works, and I'm going to do it on a separate piece of paper because there's a lot of lines here, and I don't want to confuse you. And there's also in the packet that is going to be on the bulletin board on the assignment page. I haven't added that yet, but I worked on it today. There's a whole packet with how to do different optical illusions. All right, so my 4-point orb is going to start as a circle, and then I'm going to put north, south, east, west, vanishing points. Draw a line straight through the center. And then just like, you know, things get smaller as they get farther away and as they approach the horizon line. So these shapes are going to start kind of fat. But then as we go, they're going to get closer and closer together. Same thing here, kind of fat. And then these lines like that. So that's how you do the 4-point orb. Now from here you can decide, do I want to color it in every other one like this, or maybe I want to do something a little bit different. So on this one, back in my original, I do my 4 points down through the middle. It's kind of sloppy. But then from here, I could do things like putting circles in them. And then it makes it a slightly different look. And then based on how you color it in, maybe you color the background in on this one, and you color the shape in on this one. So there's lots of different types of patterns you can make. And if you go online, you'll see a whole bunch of examples of these different types of orbs that you could play around with. Bridget Riley and Victor Vassarelli did a lot in theirs, and you can look at those. All right, so as far as this background and how you deal with these different areas over here, that's up to you. You know, we could continue, and I'm just without the ruler, I'm going to kind of eyeball it. Going to that vanishing point. Right? Now from here, I could choose to make this a square. You know, like I could make checkerboards from here if I wanted to. So I just want to make sure if I do a line on this side, I'm also going to continue it over to here, which will then continue, because that's my corner piece. It'll come down to here. There's my corner piece. So that's going to meet back up with this one. And then I could make another and do that checkerboard, you know, where you do here and then here and so on. As far as the background, you know, you could do any number of patterns in there. The big thing is you want to make sure you're not just doing checkerboards. It's going to be very easy to gravitate towards the checkerboard, and that'll get boring after a while. And we want to have contrast. So think about having the size of your patterns on the shapes be a different type of pattern and size from the size and patterns on your background. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, we will talk about it in class. Thanks for watching.